The funeral trap. News arrived that Margot had died in prison. A heart attack. No investigation. Just silence. But I didn't believe it. Still, the Delacroix family insisted on a private funeral. Invitations were sent to select members of European aristocracy. Somehow, I received one too. It was a trap. I knew it. But I went anyway. Wearing black. Wearing a wire. The chapel was stone and cold. High ceilings. Empty pews. I walked in alone. Until a man stepped out of the shadows. "Lucien. You came," he said. "I had to see the body." He smiled coldly. "There's no body." I stepped back. "She faked her death?" He nodded. "And she wants her empire back." The final move. Lucien handed me a key. "Storage unit. Marseille. If you want the truth, go tonight. She'll be waiting." I could have turned back. But I didn't. I drove 5 hours through pouring rain to a cold, dim-lit facility. Inside the unit were monitors. Files. Weapons. And Margot. Alive. Older. Thinner. Paler. But alive. "You should have died that night," she said. "But you didn't. And now you've seen too much." I stared at her, defiant. "You destroyed your family for a doctrine built on lies." She stepped forward. "And you destroyed my legacy. But you didn't destroy me." I reached for the small remote in my coat. Clicked. "Everything you just said," I whispered, "was broadcast live. To the French authorities. And Interpol." Her face crumbled. Outside, sirens wailed. The final move was mine. The new matriarch. Margot was taken, this time, no escape. Interpol confirmed everything. From the doctrine to the assassination attempts. Lucien vanished. Again. But the estate? It was now mine. Not just in name. But in truth. I tore down the portrait of Margot in the Great Hall. Replaced it with Lawrence, an image of him smiling, holding a glass of wine. A reminder of the man who never bowed to his wife's darkness. I rebranded the vineyards under my name. I opened the Delacroix archives to the public. And I exposed the doctrine. Some threatened me. Some praised me. But none could stop me. Because I had survived the poison. I had endured the shadows. And I had become something even more dangerous than Margot. A Delacroix woman who owed no one anything. Shadows don't die quietly. Chapter 20, A Glass Empire. The morning after Margot's arrest, I stood at the edge of the vineyard, breathing in the cold, sharp air. The estate stretched behind me like a living beast, quiet for now, but always waiting to awaken. The French press had descended like vultures on a wounded carcass. Headlines splashed across global tabloids. The widow who toppled the Delacroix empire. Wife outsmarts billionaire bloodline. Margot Delacroix, from matriarch to monster. But I knew better than to celebrate. Margot was caged, yes, but monsters don't need walls. Their true weapon is what they leave behind. In the days that followed, I began cleaning house. Every old associate, every board member who owed Margot a favor, every household staff who so much as flinched when I passed, I dismissed them all. I surrounded myself with forensic accountants, private security, and a team of international lawyers. But power doesn't vanish. It just changes hands. And in my hands, it would burn clean. Or so I thought. The archivist's warning. He came on a fog-heavy Tuesday morning. An old man with a limp and trembling fingers. He introduced himself as Jules Fournier, the estate's former archivist. "I watched your press conference," he said. "You speak like a lioness, but I fear you're still in the hyena's den." I narrowed my eyes. "Is that supposed to scare me?" He shook his head, reached into his coat, and pulled out a worn leather journal. This belonged to Colette Delacroix, Margot's mother. She started everything. I opened the book. Its pages were filled with coded entries, but one sentence was circled in crimson. We were never building an empire. We were guarding a secret. Secret? I asked. Jules looked out the window. There's something buried beneath this estate. Something worth killing for. Margot only carried on what Colette began. What is it? I don't know. But I believe Margot would rather see the estate burned to ash than let you find it. Fire in the cellar. That night, it happened. I woke up to smoke and sirens. The wine cellar, the oldest part of the estate, was in flames. Firefighters arrived within minutes, but the damage was done. Dozens of vintage bottles destroyed. Walls cracked. A single word spray-painted across the blackened stone. Retribution. It wasn't just arson. It was war. Someone was still loyal to Margot. Someone close. Celine was in prison. Margot was locked up. Lucien had vanished. But someone was pulling strings from the shadows. The cipher room. I returned to Colette's journal. Spent days deciphering the codes using family birth dates, Latin etchings on the estate gates, even the vineyard planting schedules. One message emerged. Chapel. Bell tower. Hollow cross. It made no sense, until I realized the chapel hadn't rung its bell in over 40 years. I climbed the stone steps alone. Found the cross that crowned the tower. It was heavier than it looked. Hollow inside. I unscrewed the base, and inside was a map. Not a full map. Just a torn piece, labeled L'Abysse de Sang, the abyss of blood. A tunnel system beneath the vineyard. I called security. Ordered a ground scan. Within hours, a hidden shaft was discovered near the greenhouse. I descended it myself. What I found turned my stomach. The room of names. It was a cold stone chamber with a single electric light. Hundreds of small drawers lined the walls, each labeled with a name and date. Each one held a file, a blood vial, and, disturbingly, black and white photos of children. It wasn't just records. It was experimentation. Notes described genetic tracking, blood analysis, behavioral conditioning. And they all bore the same header. The Delacroix Purity Trials. Margot hadn't just protected the family legacy. She had engineered it. This was the true secret, the Delacroix line wasn't just wealthy, it was designed. Colette had started a program to selectively breed dominance, claiming it was for dynastic endurance. I stumbled back, bile rising in my throat. This wasn't royalty. This was eugenics. The other heir. Among the files, one name repeated. Sebastian Delacroix. But no one in the family ever mentioned him. His photo showed a boy, maybe 16. Tall, pale, with eyes like Margot's. The notes indicated he had surpassed all genetic thresholds but was discarded due to instability. Discarded? Like a failed lab experiment? I cross-checked the name with estate records. No mention. No birth certificate. Only one reference, in a psychiatric facility report from 1993. Sebastian had been institutionalized after a violent episode. No follow-up. Until a month ago. A prison visitor log showed that Margot's last approved visitor, just before her faked death, had used the alias S. Delacroix. Her son. The one hidden even from her husband. The call from the mountain asterisk. The phone rang at 2:17 a.m. A voice, smooth and calm. You opened the abyss. Who is this? You found the truth. But you didn't bury it. You left the door open. Sebastian? A pause. I never wanted this empire. But it's in my blood. And now that Mother is gone, I am what remains. You're sick. No. I'm the cure. Click. I stared at the phone. A cure? For what? And then the estate lights cut out. Sebastian's return. He came at dawn. Through the broken garden gates. Tall, dressed in black. Unarmed, but powerful in presence. I met him on the front steps, flanked by armed security. He smiled. "You've done what none of us could. You survived her. She tried to kill me. And failed. Which means you're either blessed or needed. What do you want?" He took a breath. "Margot told me everything. About the doctrine. The purification trials. The map beneath the vineyard. She said if she failed, I was to complete her work. She failed. But I haven't." He held out a red envelope. Inside, a new manifesto. Doctrine due, the rebirth. Sebastian didn't want the estate. He wanted the world. My final play. I had a choice. Run, or end this once and for all. I chose war. I flew to The Hague. Handed over every file, every audio recording, every photo. A full testimony against the Delacroix family. Interpol launched an international investigation. By the time I returned, the estate had been seized. Sebastian disappeared into the Alps. I packed what I could. The vineyards would be sold. The doctrine dismantled. But the blood wouldn't wash away so easily. And as I boarded the jet for Geneva, I received one final message. A note in black ink. Blood remembers. And it's not finished with you. No signature. No return address. But I knew. The shadows weren't gone. Only waiting. Smoke over Geneva. I spent 3 weeks in Geneva under tight security. The Delacroix scandal had ignited a global blaze. News networks ran my face next to Margot's and Sebastian's. Some called me a hero. Others whispered I was the woman who destroyed an empire. But destruction wasn't my goal. It was rebirth. Still, I never stopped looking over my shoulder. Sebastian was out there. Margot might have raised a monster, but he was intelligent, quiet, and worse, he believed in the cause. And causes like his don't die easily. Then, late one evening, a call came through a secure line. "He's resurfaced," said Agent Levesque. Switzerland. A private gala hosted by the Rothschild Group. I had one response: "Tell them I'm coming." The Silver Masquerade. The gala was hosted in a glass mansion nestled in the Montreux Hills, elite, veiled in secrecy, invitation only. I arrived masked, dressed in emerald silk, bearing the Delacroix crest. They let me in immediately. The ballroom glimmered with chandeliers and deception. Diplomats, billionaires, exiled royals, every one of them bound by silence and sin. And in the center, standing by a mirror draped in blood-red velvet, Sebastian. He saw me. Smiled. And gestured to dance. I walked to him, slowly, like a wife returning from war. "You've got the whole world watching, and yet you still want to play emperor," I whispered. "This isn't a game," he said. "It's reclamation." "Of what?" He leaned in. "You." The serpent's charm. As the string quartet played on, Sebastian guided me across the floor with eerie calm. "You see," he murmured, "I've read every file. You're not an outsider. You were chosen. Margot's first draft had your name." "That's a lie. She studied you long before Hugo met you. Even your infertility treatments were logged in the archives. The way you talk. Walk. Led. He twirled me once. She wanted you to be the bearer." "The bearer of what?" He looked down. "Of the next Delacroix bloodline. Reimagined. Refined." I froze. "You're insane." "No," he said. "I'm inevitable. The truth serum." At midnight, I slipped away to the security room and handed the USB drive to Interpol's covert agents hiding inside the caterer's van. It contained my final trap. Every conversation in that mansion, recorded. Every guest, tagged. Each one with ties to genetic trafficking, corporate manipulation, and the doctrine due. They didn't just come for champagne and caviar. They came to build a future empire, one child at a time. And now, they were caught. I returned to the ballroom. A moment later, the chandeliers flickered. Spotlights turned red. Doors sealed. Interpol swarmed in through the skylights. Panic erupted. And as Sebastian tried to slip away, I stopped him, pressing a syringe to his neck. Ironic, I whispered, that you fall the same way Margot tried to kill me. He collapsed. The Chamber of Echoes. Sebastian was imprisoned in a high-security psychiatric facility in Norway. The charges against him, and dozens of global elites, formed the largest conspiracy case in European legal history. Margot, now officially alive due to surveillance videos, was re-extracted from her fake asylum and charged with over 300 counts of conspiracy, fraud, attempted murder, and biological experimentation. I was asked to testify at The Hague. Before that, I returned to the estate one last time. It stood empty, stripped bare of its former soul. In the crypt beneath the vineyard, I lit a lantern and walked to the altar room, the place where the doctrine began. On the stone table was Colette's final etching. What grows in blood dies in fire. I took a match. Poured wine across the old parchments. And set it all aflame. No more Delacroix secrets. No more doctrine. Just ash. A child of my own. 1 year later, I sat in a quiet cottage in Florence, a cup of chamomile tea in hand. My name had been cleared. My book, The Wife Who Survived the Empire, became a global bestseller. But most importantly, I adopted a little girl. Her name was Elena. Dark curls. Fierce eyes. A heart wide enough to heal the earth. No bloodlines. No legacies. Just love. Every night, I whispered to her. You are not chosen by fate. You are chosen by me. And that is enough. The last letter. On the eve of my wedding anniversary, Hugo's Memorial Day, I received a letter. No stamp. Just initials on the back, MD. I opened it carefully. You were the only one worthy. I should have let you lead instead of trying to destroy you. In another life, I would have called you daughter. Margot. Inside the envelope, a black and white photo of Hugo as a boy. On the back, written in blue ink. He believed in you even when I didn't. A vineyard of daisies. 3 years later, I visited the estate one last time. It had been repurposed as a home for abandoned children and survivors of experimental abuse. Where the vineyard once grew grapes for profit, now wild daisies bloomed. Pure. Untamed. Free. As I stood among them, Elena ran through the rows, her laughter echoing against the hills. And in that moment, I knew. The empire was dead. But something better had been born. Something no bloodline could control. Legacy through love. Not fear. Not doctrine. Not blood. Just choice. And I had chosen life. Phew, what a journey. From that first sip at the dinner table to the explosive truths that followed, this wasn't just a story about betrayal, it was a story about boundaries, survival, and silent wars fought in family rooms. How many times have we smiled across a table while hiding wounds? How many times have we ignored red flags in the name of love, peace, or tradition? In this story, we witnessed a woman who was underestimated, who walked into a marriage hoping to build a home, but instead found herself surrounded by manipulation, envy, and a mother-in-law willing to poison her own peace to gain control. But here's what made the difference: she didn't fold. She didn't beg. She watched. She listened. And when the time came, she acted. Not out of hate, but from wisdom. And that one moment, that one decision to swap the glass, didn't just expose evil, it ended an entire illusion. Family is supposed to be your safest space. But when it becomes your battlefield, you have to choose: will you become the victim? Or will you rise as the victor? And if you're listening right now, if you've been through betrayal, if you've sat at a table where you felt unwanted, unprotected, or unsafe, hear this: you are not weak. You are not crazy. And you are not alone. Sometimes, the people closest to us carry the deepest daggers. But that doesn't mean we stop being kind, wise, or courageous. It means we sharpen our discernment. We learn how to protect our peace, and when necessary, we walk away with our head held high. To everyone who stayed till the end, thank you. This story was more than fiction. For some, it's reality. Let's keep talking about these hidden wounds. Let's protect our daughters, our sisters, our sons. And let's keep creating spaces where love isn't poisoned by power. If this touched you, drop a comment, share your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful, emotional stories that heal, awaken, and empower. Until next time, stay wise, stay kind, and never let anyone poison your purpose.